Solara stood at the edge of the stone courtyard, her silver eyes lowered to the ground. Around her, voices rose in a chorus of worry and expectation. The council elders of her people, the Thrinians, had gathered in a circle. Their long robes shimmered under the weak light of the twin suns. Shadows stretched across the ancient tiles, heavy with centuries of tradition. "Solara," one of the elders said, his voice deep and commanding, "you are young, strong, and born of a noble line. It is your duty to step forward to help our people continue. We cannot afford more delay." The words fell hard against her heart. She felt their weight pressing on her chest. Slowly she lifted her head and shook it. "No," she whispered. Her voice trembled but did not break. "I am not fit. I cannot. Bury me here if you must, but do not ask me again." Gasps moved through the crowd. Some placed their hands over their mouths in shock. Others murmured with anger. To refuse the council was rare. To speak of burial in the sacred courtyard was unheard of. Solara's hands clenched at her sides. She wanted to explain, but no words could capture the storm inside her. For years, she had seen failure. Every attempt to bring new life among her. People ended in sorrow. Families mourned empty cradles. Mothers wept for children who never came. Solara had watched her own sisters fade away under the same burden. She would not be another name in that line of loss. The elder frowned. "You speak of death too lightly, Solara. Our people vanish with each passing cycle. If we do not act, we will be shadows in the dust of time." "I know," Solara said, her voice breaking. "But I cannot carry the hope of a whole world. I am not strong enough." The council fell into silence. Only the sound of the wind moving through the courtyard. Trees filled the space. Solara wished the ground would open beneath her feet and take her away from their piercing stares. But before another word could be spoken, a strange sound echoed in the distance, a sharp crash followed by a roar of metal against stone. The council turned their heads toward the horizon. A plume of smoke rose beyond the valley. "What is that?" someone asked. Solara's heart skipped. She had never heard such a noise before. Moments later, messengers rushed in, their faces pale with shock. "A ship has fallen from the sky," they cried. "It burns in the eastern fields. Something, or someone, survives." The council stirred, with unease. The Thrinians were a private people, far from the traffic of other races. Few strangers ever came to their lands. "Bring the survivor here," the elder ordered at last. "We must see who dares fall upon our world." Hours passed, and Solara remained near the courtyard, unable to leave. She felt torn between shame for her refusal and curiosity about the one who had fallen from the sky. When the guards finally returned, they did not come alone. Between them walked a figure unlike any Solara had ever seen. The stranger was taller than most Thrinians, his skin a warm brown instead of pale blue. His hair was dark, cut short, and his eyes were sharp but tired. His clothes were torn from the crash, marked with smoke and ash. He stumbled slightly as he walked, yet there was strength in his step, as if he had endured worse before. "A human," the elder murmured, studying him closely. "From the outer colonies, perhaps. What fate brings him here?" The human bowed, slightly though his movements were rough. "Name's Elias Grant," he said, his voice firm but weary. "Ship malfunctioned. I had no choice but to land here." Solara's eyes widened at the sound of his words. His accent was strange, but she understood. Something in his voice carried a sense of resilience, of stubborn life that refused to fade. The council exchanged uneasy glances. Strangers were dangerous, but they were also opportunities. Elias, though wounded, stood tall before them, refusing to show weakness. "You are far from home, human," the elder said. "Do you know where you have landed?" Elias gave a faint smile. "Judging by the looks, I'd say a place that doesn't welcome outsiders." A few Thrinians muttered in disapproval, but Solara could not look away from him. There was something strange about this man. He looked fragile compared to her people, yet his eyes carried fire. The elder's voice grew stern. we decide what to do with you. Until then, you remain here under watch." Elias nodded, unbothered. "Fine by me. I only need food, water, and time to repair what I can. After that, I'll be out of your way." But though he spoke of leaving, fate had already written a different path. That night, Solara could not sleep. She wandered into the gardens beside the council hall, where moonlight fell softly on the fountains and flowers. There she found Elias sitting on a stone bench, his arms resting on his knees. He looked up when he heard her steps. "Couldn't sleep either?" he asked. Solara hesitated, then slowly moved closer. "Why do you sound so calm? You fell from the sky, your ship is broken, and you sit here as if nothing matters." Elias chuckled softly. "Because panic never fixes anything. I've survived worse. At least I'm alive. That means there's still a chance." Solara frowned. "Alive? But for what? What if living means nothing more than waiting for the end?" Elias studied her, puzzled by her words. "You sound like someone who's already given up." Her chest tightened. She wanted to tell him of her refusal earlier, of how she felt unworthy, but the shame kept her silent. Instead, she asked, "And you? Have you never given up?" Elias shook his head slowly. "I've thought about it, sure. But humans, we're stubborn. Even when the universe says you can't, we say, 'Watch me.' Maybe it's foolish, but it's who we are." His words struck her deeply. "Watch me." The phrase repeated in her mind like a seed taking root. She had always thought of herself as weak, cursed. But here stood a fragile human, claiming strength not from power or skill, but from stubborn will. For the first time in a long while, Solara felt something stir inside her, a flicker of curiosity, perhaps even hope. The next morning, the council gathered again. The elders debated loudly, their voices filling the chamber. "This human may bring danger," one argued. "Or he may bring answers," another replied. Solara stood silently among them, her eyes drifting toward Elias. She still felt the weight of her refusal. But now she also felt a strange pull. The elder finally raised his hand for silence. "We face extinction. Our children do not come. Our line weakens. And now a human falls from the stars. Is this fate or folly? We must decide. Soon." Solara's heart pounded. She remembered Elias's words from the night before. "Watch me." She wondered if perhaps this human had arrived for a reason, and though she did not yet understand what role he would play, she felt that her own journey, whether of despair or hope, was no longer hers alone. The morning light spilled gently across the stone halls of the council. The Thrinians gathered again, their robes swaying as they took their seats in the half-circle chamber. The air smelled faintly of incense and the old stones that had stood for centuries. This was the place where great choices were made, where hope could be born or broken. Solara stood near the edge of the chamber, her hands folded tightly together. She did not belong among the elders, yet they had asked her to remain. Perhaps it was because of her refusal yesterday. Perhaps it was because of the human who now sat quietly at the back of the hall. Elias. He looked out of place among them. His clothes, patched hastily from his wreck, marked him as an outsider. His dark eyes, though tired, carried calm. He did not flinch at the stares of the council, though Solara could feel the weight of their suspicion pressing on him. The eldest elder, Malor, rose to his feet. His voice echoed through the chamber. "We gather to speak of our dying future. For 3 generations our people have tried and failed to bring forth new life. The cradles remain empty. The line of the Thrinians falters. A murmur spread among the gathered citizens who had come to witness. Their faces showed sorrow but also weariness. They had heard these words too many times before. Malor's voice hardened. We lose more each season. Fewer children, fewer births, entire families vanish. And with them, our strength. The outer worlds whisper that the Thrinians are fading. If we do nothing, those whispers will soon become truth. Solara lowered her head. She had lived with this truth all her life. Every festival that once celebrated new children now stood empty. The laughter of the young had grown rare, replaced by silence. Even the fields seemed quieter, as though the world itself mourned. Another elder, Saren, spoke next. We have searched for answers. Our healers studied the body. Our scholars studied the stars. None can tell us why. They only say it is so. Her voice broke slightly. We are cursed. The word sent a chill through the chamber. Solara felt her throat tighten. That word had haunted her family for years. It was the word her mother had whispered before her death. It was the word her sisters had carried to their graves, and it was the word Solara had spoken in her heart when she refused. But then another voice cut through the silence. A deep, steady voice that did not belong to any Thrinians. Where I come from, Elias said, standing slowly. We don't believe in curses. We believe in causes, and causes can be fixed. Every eye turned toward him. Some frowned in annoyance, others looked curious. Solara held her breath. Maelor narrowed his eyes. You speak boldly for one who knows little of our kind. Elias shrugged. Maybe so, but I know about survival. I've seen colonies starve, ships lost in space, people ready to give up, and I've seen them stand again. Not because they were strong, but because they refused to stop trying. His words struck Solara's chest like a spark. She remembered. The council chamber was dim, lit only by blue firestones along the walls. The elders had gathered in silence. For 3 days they had argued in private, voices rising and falling until their throats grew dry. Tonight, their debate reached its peak. Elder Maelor stood, his tall frame casting a long shadow. We can no longer deny what lies before us, he said. Our people cannot bring forth life. Every attempt ends in sorrow. Yet the human, he survives what our bodies cannot. He endures pain, cold, hunger, even injury longer than we thought possible. Elder Saren's hands trembled on her staff. What you suggest is madness. Madness, Maelor agreed. But perhaps the only chance we have left. If the human can carry what we cannot, then our line may continue. The chamber fell, silent. Even the firestones seemed to burn softer as though they too were listening. At last, Saren whispered, It is unthinkable. Our ancestors would never approve. Our ancestors are gone, Maelor answered firmly. If we cling to their silence, we join them in dust. If we try, we may yet live. Solara had not been allowed inside that meeting, but she felt the tension when the elders left the chamber. Their faces were tight, their eyes filled with unspoken words. She followed them with her gaze, her heart uneasy. Later she found Elias in the gardens again, repairing a piece of equipment from his ship. He worked with steady hands, humming softly to himself. The sound was strange but calming. You always fix things, Solara said quietly. Elias looked up. If something's broken, I try. That's the rule I live by. What's on your mind? She hesitated. The council hides something. They whisper behind closed doors. I feel afraid. Elias gave her a gentle smile. They're probably debating what to do with me. Can't blame them. I'm a stranger who fell out of the sky. Solara shook her head. It is more than that. I sense they think of something greater, something impossible. Elias leaned back, watching her carefully. And how do you feel about impossible things? She looked down at her hands. They frighten me. But sometimes your words make me think they might not be so frightening. Their eyes met for a moment, and Solara felt her chest grow warm. She quickly turned away, but the feeling lingered. The next day, the council called Elias to the training grounds. Solara stood nearby, watching with unease as the elders tested him. They gave him weights far heavier than any Thrinian could lift for long. Elias struggled, but did not fall. Sweat dripped from his brow, his arms shook, but he refused to drop. They placed him in the cold pool, its waters biting like winter. A Thrinian would faint within minutes. Elias remained, teeth clenched, shivering yet steady. They asked him to run the valley path, steep and winding. His steps faltered, his breath grew harsh, but still he pressed on. Solara's heart raced as she watched. Each trial pushed him to the edge, yet his stubborn will carried him further. The other Thrinians whispered among themselves, both impressed and unsettled. At last Elias collapsed to his knees, panting hard. Yet even then he lifted his head with a grin. "Still alive," he said. "Guess that counts." Mailer nodded slowly. "Yes, still alive, when many of us would not be. You prove again what we cannot deny. Humans endure." Solara ran to him with water, kneeling by his side. "Why do you push yourself so far?" she asked. Elias took the water and drank, then wiped his mouth. "Because if there's a chance to help, I'll take it. That's what being human means, we don't quit." Her chest tightened. She wanted to tell him not to risk himself for her people, but another part of her wanted to believe in his strength. That night Solara sat by her window looking out at the stars. She thought of her refusal in the courtyard, of how she had begged not to be asked to carry the burden of her people. She thought of Elias, who had taken every burden given to him without complaint. A knock came at her door. She opened it to find Elder Saren standing there, her eyes heavy with sadness. "Child," Saren said softly, "you must prepare yourself. Tomorrow the council will speak what we have long held back. You will not like their words, but you must listen." Solara's heart sank. "What do you mean?" Saren shook her head. "I cannot say more. Only, remember that sometimes the path of survival is not the path we desire." Then she turned and walked away, leaving Solara trembling in the doorway. Next day, the council chamber filled once more. Elias stood at the center, Solara at his side, the elders around them. The air felt heavy, as though the very stones of the chamber knew what was coming. Mailer raised his staff. "Elias Grant of Earth, you have shown strength beyond our kind. Where we falter, you endure. Where we break, you continue. We believe you may do what we cannot." Elias frowned slightly. "And what is that exactly?" Solara's breath caught. Her body tensed as she waited for the words she feared. Mailer spoke clearly, each word echoing across the chamber. "We ask you to carry the future of the Thrinians, to bear what we cannot, to hold within you the hope of our survival." The chamber fell silent. Solara felt her heart pound in her chest. This was the impossible proposal she had feared, the unthinkable choice. Elias stood very still, his face unreadable. His eyes flickered toward Solara, and for a moment she thought she saw both shock and determination. Finally, he let out a long breath. "That's not what I expected." Mailer bowed his head. "It is what we must ask. Not because we wish to, but because no other path remains. Will you consider it human?" Solara could no longer stay silent. She stepped forward, her voice trembling. "This is madness. You cannot ask him this. He is not one of us. He should not suffer for our failures." Mailer looked at her with calm eyes. "Child, you refused. You said you were not fit. Perhaps you were right. Perhaps the answer lies not in you nor in any of us, but in him." Tears burned in Solara's eyes. She turned toward Elias. "You do not have to do this. You owe us nothing. If they push this on you, I will stand against them." Elias met her gaze. His expression was gentle, almost sad, but beneath it, she saw the fire again. The human fire that refused to die. "Maybe I don't owe you," he said softly. "But maybe this is what I'm meant to do. Maybe I fell here for a reason." Her breath caught. She wanted to tell him not to. She wanted to beg him to leave, to save himself. Yet deep inside, another voice whispered, "Watch me." Mailer raised his staff once more. "Then we wait for your answer, Elias Grant. Take time to think. But know this, our people's survival rests upon your choice." The chamber emptied slowly. leaving Solara and Elias standing together in silence. At last she spoke, her voice barely above a whisper. "Why would you even think of saying yes?" Elias looked at the floor, then at her. "Because sometimes the impossible is the only thing worth trying. And because maybe you need me to." Solara's heart ached with fear and hope all at once. She wanted to stop him, yet she could not. For the first time in her life, she saw a path forward, not through her own strength, but through the unyielding will of a human. The impossible proposal had been spoken, and nothing would ever be the same again. Elias woke before dawn. The first rays of the twin suns painted the courtyard in shades of gold and silver. The chamber doors opened, and he was led to the council hall where the elders awaited. Solara walked silently beside him, her hands folded, eyes downcast. "You ready?" she asked softly. He smiled faintly. "I don't know if anyone can ever be ready for something like this, but I'll try. That's all we can do, right?" She nodded, though a lump formed in her throat. The council spoke no words of comfort. Their faces were grave, lined with worry and years of watching hope fade. Malor, the eldest, stepped forward. "Elias Grant, your choice will define the future of the Thrinians. If you accept this path, you will face trials no human has ever faced. Your endurance, your strength, and your heart will be tested." Elias stood tall. "I understand, I accept." The chamber fell silent. Solara held her breath. She had expected fear, hesitation, perhaps even a refusal. Yet here he was, stepping into the unknown without a single complaint. The first step was preparation. The Thrinians guided him to the healing chambers where advanced devices and natural remedies combined to prepare his body. Solara stayed close, watching carefully as machines hummed softly, and pools of liquid glowed faintly under the ceiling. "This will help your body endure," one of the healers said. "It is not easy. Many cannot survive even the first stage. But you have already proven your will is strong." Elias nodded. "Then I will endure." Solara helped him with the procedures. She mixed the herbs, adjusted the machines, and offered water. Each time she touched his arm, she felt the faint warmth of life and determination. "You do not fear this?" she asked quietly, her voice almost trembling. He shook his head. "Fear is useless here. Only focus matters. Only the choice. To keep moving, keep trying." Solara looked at him amazed. This human, fragile in appearance, carried within him a fire her people could only dream of. Days turned into weeks. Each day, Elias endured tests designed to strengthen his body and prepare him for what none of the Thrinians could do naturally. He ran long distances under the scorching suns, climbed cliffs that left even Thrinians gasping, and rested little between exercises. Solara stayed by his side, offering encouragement, sometimes simply watching to ensure he did not push too far. The bond between them grew quietly. She learned to read the smallest expressions on his face, the way his jaw tightened before a climb, the way his eyes softened when he looked at her. He began to trust her, relying on he. The valley lay quiet under the morning suns, but the air was heavy with tension. Elias had been training for weeks in preparation for the next stage. Each trial grew harder, designed to push him to limits no human or Thrinian had ever faced. Solara walked beside him, her steps careful and steady. The first rays of sunlight touched the silver leaves of the crystal trees, making them shimmer faintly. She could feel Elias's exhaustion even before seeing his face. "You don't have to do everything today," she said softly. "We can rest if you need." Elias shook his head, though a small smile tugged at his lips. "Resting isn't an option anymore. Every day counts. If I fail, the line of your people fails too. I can't stop." Solara felt her chest tighten. She had grown to admire his stubborn courage, yet she also feared for him. His body had limits, and even though he had survived every test so far, she knew the strain was building. The first trial that morning was a climb up the eastern cliffs. Sharp stone protrusions and narrow ledges made even the Thrinians careful. Elias ascended steadily, his muscles straining with every step. Solara followed, close enough to lend a hand if necessary, but careful not to intrude. Halfway up, his foot slipped slightly on a loose stone. Solara gasped, ready to reach for him, but Elias steadied himself, gripping the rock firmly. "I've got it," he said. His voice was calm, almost casual, though she knew the effort it took to hold himself there. Her worry melted into awe. Each time he faced danger, he met it with courage, refusing to falter. She wondered how one human could carry so much strength, inside a body so fragile by Thrinian standards. When he reached the top, he sank to his knees, breathing hard. Solara offered water and gently helped him rest. "You're amazing," she whispered. "I don't know how you do it." Elias shrugged, smiling faintly despite his fatigue. "I do it because I must and because you're here. You remind me why it matters." Her heart ached with emotion. She had never felt such admiration for anyone, not even among her own kind. But it wasn't just admiration. It was trust, and something more that she couldn't yet name. After the climb, the council gathered to review his progress. Some elders looked relieved, others worried. "He survived the cliffs," Mailer said quietly, "stronger than any of our expectations." "But at what cost?" Saren replied, her voice tinged with fear. "He is human. Even his strength has limits. What if the next trial breaks him?" Solara, standing nearby, felt her chest tighten. She wanted to shout at them, not to doubt him, but she restrained herself. Instead, she clenched her hands and prayed silently that he could endure whatever came next. The second trial was the endurance test in the Crystal River, where icy waters flowed swiftly through jagged rocks. Even a Thrinian would struggle to remain submerged and moving for long periods. Elias entered the water without hesitation. Solara followed the riverbank, calling out gentle encouragement. "Keep moving. Focus on the current, not the cold." The water burned his muscles, each movement a fight against both chill and force. He gasped, water streaming into his eyes, yet he pushed on. Hours passed. Solara remained at the bank, her voice never faltering, helping him maintain focus. Her own strength grew as she watched him endure. She began to understand that survival was not about muscle or magic alone. It was about the fire in one's heart. By sunset, Elias had reached the end of the river, shivering, exhausted, yet alive. Solara helped him out, wrapping him in warm cloths. Her hands shook slightly. I don't know how you did it," she said softly. Elias looked at her with a faint smile. "Step by step, one movement at a time. That's all anyone can do." Her chest swelled with admiration. Step by step, he carried not just his own body, but the hopes of an entire species. That night, Solara stayed by his side as he recovered in the healing chambers. Machines hummed softly, filling the room with gentle light. "You are pushing yourself too far," she whispered, brushing damp hair from his forehead. He shook his head. "No. I need to endure. You understand why, right?" She nodded slowly. "I do. But I am afraid. I cannot lose you." Elias reached for her hand. "Then stay with me. That is why I am still standing. Because you are here. Because your people trust me, and because you do too." Tears filled her eyes. She had never felt such emotion, such connection. She squeezed his hand tightly, realizing that their journey was no longer just about survival. It was about something far greater: hope, trust, and the courage to face the impossible together. The next weeks brought more challenges. Elias faced tests in extreme heat, bitter cold, and long periods of fasting. Solara remained by his side, sometimes silently supporting, sometimes guiding him through obstacles. The council watched from afar, their doubts slowly giving way to hope. Each day Elias survived another trial. Each day the impossible seemed a little closer to possible. "He may truly succeed," Mailer admitted quietly to Saren one morning. "I feared for him, yet he endures." "Humans," Saren said softly, have a resilience we cannot fully understand. Perhaps this was meant to be. Perhaps he is the answer. Then came the moment that changed everything. The council introduced the final test before the process could begin in earnest. It was the long-term endurance challenge, designed to simulate carrying life itself. Elias entered the chamber, Solara following closely. Machines, water pools, and natural obstacles lined the path. The test would push him for days without full rest. Solara's chest tightened. "This is the hardest yet," she whispered. He nodded. "I know, but we can do it. Together." For 3 days, he endured the trial. Each hour tested his strength, each movement tested his resolve. Solara never left him, whispering encouragement, offering sustenance, keeping him focused when exhaustion threatened to overcome him. Finally, at the end of the 3rd day, he collapsed. Solara rushed to him, wrapping him in warm blankets. His breathing was heavy, but he was alive. The healers confirmed what Solara had already felt. He had adapted beyond expectation. His body could endure what no Thrinian could. Tears streamed down Solara's face. "You did it," she whispered. "You really did it." Elias smiled faintly. "We did it. You didn't leave me once." The council gathered again. This time their faces shone with hope. "The human has proven himself," Mailer said, "stronger than any of us dared to imagine. Perhaps he truly can carry the future of our people." Sirin nodded slowly. "He has endured the impossible. We must begin the process." Solara looked at Elias. He was exhausted beyond words, yet a quiet fire burned in his eyes. She realized then that survival was more than strength. It was the will to endure, the courage to carry hope when all seemed lost. She reached out and took his hand. "Are you ready for what comes next?" she asked softly. He nodded, squeezing her hand back. "I have never been more ready. For them. For you. For all of us." And so the impossible had become possible. The trials were over, the preparation complete, and the final journey, the carrying of life itself, was about to begin. Solara stood by his side, her heart pounding. Together, they would face what no one thought could be done. Together, they would defy odds and perhaps bring hope to a world that had almost given up. The next chapter of their journey had begun. The chamber was quiet but filled with anticipation. Machines hummed softly, pools of warm water shimmered faintly, and crystal trees glowed with gentle light. The elders stood in solemn formation, watching closely. Solara stood beside Elias, holding his hand. Her heart pounded with both fear and hope. Today the impossible became real. Today Elias would carry what no Thrinian could. "You are ready," Solara whispered, her voice trembling slightly. He nodded, squeezing her hand. "I am. And I am not alone." The lead healer approached. "Elias Grant, the process begins now. Your body has adapted. Your strength is proven. What comes next will test patience, courage, and willpower. We will guide you, but the journey belongs to you." Elias took a deep breath. The weight of expectation pressed on him, yet he felt steady. "I understand," he said. The first hours were the most difficult. Though his body had endured countless trials, the process demanded a new kind of endurance, a sustained strength of mind and spirit. He focused on each breath, each heartbeat, and each passing moment. Solara stayed at his side, whispering encouragement, holding his hand whenever doubt threatened. "You are stronger than you think," she said softly. "We believe in you." "I believe in you." Elias nodded, drawing courage from her words. "Then we do this together," he replied. Time passed slowly. Hours became days. His body ached, yet his determination never wavered. Solara never left him, guiding him, supporting him, and reminding him that hope could carry them both. The council watched in awe. Even the most skeptical elders were moved by the human's courage. He is enduring what none of us could, Mailer whispered to Saren. Perhaps this is truly our salvation. Saren's eyes were filled with tears. It is more than survival. It is courage and hope. We have not seen such strength in generations. By the third day, subtle signs of success appeared. The healers confirmed changes in his physiology. His body had adapted to carry the seed of life stronger than anyone had imagined. Solara felt tears prick her eyes. She looked at Elias, exhausted but alive, and knew that hope was no longer distant. It was real. You are doing it, she whispered. He smiled faintly. No, we are doing it. I could not endure this without you. Her chest warmed. She had thought herself unworthy, broken, unable to carry the future. But standing by,